This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby. We've got a jam-packed show for you this week. Lots going on, even though it's a holiday weekend. Hope everyone's having a safe 4th of July out there and enjoying some time off. I know our team is enjoying a 3-day weekend. That's what they were excited about coming up. But speaking of coming up, later in the show, we'll be talking with Robert and talking about how planning for retirement for a small business owner, it's a different approach typically than someone's that just is working a 9-to-5 and getting a paycheck from somewhere. If you own your own business, preparing for retirement has some tax considerations, and we'll be talking about that at the end of the show with Robert Carr with Market Tax Services. Later in the bottom half of the hour, we'll be talking with Mark Benefill with Market Medicare Advisors about a gentleman who took advice from his friends, but now, because of his healthcare options, he's got a tax situation. Yeah, that's right. The healthcare is going to touch the tax situation there. Then coming up with Gerald Eidelman with Eidelman Law Firm, he and I will be talking about last-minute estate planning. Kid you not, he's going to share with us a story that the result, the outcome, I'm going to tell you, will just be mind-boggling. You will not want to miss what Gerald has to talk about here with us later on Retire Hour. But speaking of disasters, because that's what Gerald and I are going to be talking about, that she had a last-minute planning disaster there in her estate plan. Speaking of disasters, have you ever thought to yourself, what would happen if disaster struck in your situation? And it could be anything. It could be the loss of a spouse. It could be you're laid off suddenly. Do you start taking Social Security? Do you not? It could be all of a sudden you find yourself, your health care is changing or your health needs are changing and the care you're going to require is going to change. It can happen at any moment in retirement. None of us are promised tomorrow, right? So what would happen if disaster struck? Well, I've got a couple that I've been working with for several years now. I've had the privilege of working, we're going to call them Kay and Robert. That's not their real names, but I want to protect their identity. And they've been working with me for a couple years now. They're great, hardworking, thoughtful, and like many of you watching or listening to this show, they've been doing the right things to prepare for retirement. But recently, Kay, she called me in a bit of a panic, and we got her in on the calendar. She came in. Her husband, Robert, had an accident, and he was doing some work around the house, and he ended up in the hospital. And this just wasn't an overnight visit. This is now over a month. And so he's kind of showing some signs of improvement. They're seeing some areas where he's recovering, but that experience really shook them. And Kay asked me, she goes, well, what should I do? What happens if the insurance doesn't cover it all? What happens if this turns into a long-term care situation? Can we protect anything that we've worked for? Is it just all going to go to the nursing home? And as a financial advisor, I can counsel her on the investments. I can talk to her about, when to take Social Security and, her investment strategies. But these are kind of questions where it happens a lot. People go out there and they ask their financial advisor, hey, what should I do with this? And what should I do with that? But really the person she needed to be speaking with was probably an elder law attorney. And I reminded Kay, I said, this is why we built this team for you. You're coming in, you're asking us when this disaster's hitting your family and you don't know what to do. And we have the resources that you can rely on to get answers to the questions you have in real time. Now, I'm just the financial advisor. I'm not an elder law attorney, but we have these people that we can go reach out and bring in the conference room, and it helps to have that there as that comfort. And because when something like this happens, and it's not just a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? It's not a matter if the disaster comes, it's when it comes and what it is. You're going to need more than just a financial advisor when that happens. And fortunately, again, we knew Kay and Robert's situation. We've been working with them for a while. It's not glamorous, but she's got most of most of the liquid assets are in her retirement account. And she's got about $300,000 there. And because Kansas, the way they treat it in Medicaid, the Kansas will not recognize her retirement accounts as a countable asset because she's married and because she's the well spouse. So these are all terminologies and all technicalities that you need to know, because someone might think, well, we can't apply for Medicaid. Truth be told, they're about right at the area where they can apply for Medicaid to help him cover the costs if he needs it for that long-term care. But again, it's not a matter of if this disaster will strike you. Maybe a different disaster, maybe, again, laid off, a loss of a spouse, a tax headache that you weren't expecting. Whatever the disaster is, It's not a matter of if a disaster is going to come calling. It's a matter of when. And you need more than just an advisor. You need a team that already knows your financial, tax, estate planning, medical, and all the financial plans that you have, that all how to work together quickly to protect you in these situations. Later in the show, I mentioned we'll be talking with Gerald Eidelman. He's one of our estate planning attorneys here. He'll talk about how this disaster in the story he's going to share this week of someone that literally waited to the last minute. And I know it might sound like Kay and Robert, they're in that last minute scenario, but they're not. They're actually right here at the right place at the right time because they were already prepared. They were already plugged in. But if disaster struck your family tomorrow, would you or your spouse, your loved ones, or even yourself know who to call? Would you have people that know your full situation and can take immediate action? Maybe you're not married. Maybe you're single and you're thinking, I don't even know who could help me if something like this happened. That's a huge risk. And it's one that I see far too often. See, these are the pitfalls most people don't even realize exist in their retirement. And if you're unsure about whether you've addressed them, and if you want to remove any ounce of doubt, I strongly recommend you scheduling a 15-minute intro call with us. And you can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. You can do it from the comfort of your home, or it's just a conversation by phone, just to chit-chat about what's going on there and to see if you could benefit from going through our full-blown process. And on that phone call, we'll talk about your concerns and have a conversation around the fact if it makes sense for you to get your own, what we're calling the Core 4 report. That's a process we've developed to assess your financial, tax, healthcare, and estate planning risks all in one place. So again, schedule that 15-minute phone call so you can avoid this disaster situations or help at least be prepared when disaster strikes. And you can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters M-A-G, report. Or you can visit our new website, retirementhelp.com, and you can get scheduled right there. You know, we all use the internet for searching for things, right? Google when we need answers. But have you ever searched the internet for what am I missing in my retirement plan? It's tough. Because how do you search for something you don't even know what you're supposed to look for? And that's the gap we fill with the Core 4 report. It helps you uncover those blind spots before they turn into a crisis. Again, call us at 833-MAG-REPORT to schedule that 15-minute phone conversation with us just by phone. Or don't wait and wake up like Kay and Robert one day where they were just in shock. Let's get ahead of these things together. And speaking of together, we'll be right back after this talking with Jonathan McCoy up in Kansas City. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And I mentioned before we went out to the commercial break there, we're going to go up to Kansas City now and talk with Jonathan McCoy in our Overland Park office up there, using the new cube Damon built. It's looking good, looking good. What do you got to share with us this week as far as a story? This is someone that really wasn't aware of how close retirement was coming up on him. Isn't that true?
Yeah, in a way. So, I mean, he was, I guess, coming at it from perspective, and this is a new client of ours, Mike, who we've been working with over the last couple of months to sort of help him determine if he can retire on what he hopes is his own time frame in terms of just being ready to be done with work. He had 35 years of work history in with his current employer. And ultimately, the challenge is for Mike, he's not quite age 59 and a half. There's some early withdrawal tax penalties in play there if he decides to retire and needs to start spending money from his 401k. There's tax implications in terms of what it's just going to cost him to access these funds between a pension account and his other retirement savings. So there was a wide variety of things that we needed to review throughout our Core 4 report process. And over the course of a couple of meetings, I kept reiterating with Mike, what is your ideal time frame? And he kept saying, if I could go, I'd pull the trigger tomorrow. And we began meeting with Mike back at the beginning or the end of May. And ultimately, he decided that, if we could do it July 1st, we'll do it July 1st. This week just wound up being his retirement date, actually. But we had to go through the process, and we weren't trying to rush through it. We had to uncover what were his budget needs, what was his marital and financial situation with his, technically his significant other. They're not married yet, but plan to in the future. He's got a small vacation home that they like to visit. It's kind of unique the way that they split expenses. So we were digging deep into the household expense need perspective in his situation to determine, is he going to have the funds available to sustain him without causing a lot of these other tax headaches and early withdrawal headaches. We also had to address those healthcare needs. Since he's retiring prior to age 65, he's not going to be able to flip over and go on to Medicare for several years. So all of this is part of that discovery process that we talk about early on in that MAGCOR 4 report, and understanding what are these key needs. And some of the next things that we're going to be discussing with him are along the lines of what you discussed in our first segment, which would be estate planning needs. Now you've got a blended family coming together with kids on both sides. How are assets going to be separated? So if something happens to both of them, I should say. So there's just that step-by-step process. And the reason I wanted to tell Mike's story is it's not necessarily that everyone is able to or wants to get 10 years ahead on their retirement plan. Some personality types that we work with, and some of you folks out there, you really are those consummate planners. In Mike's case, it was just, how can I get retired as soon as possible? Is it possible? And the answer in his case, fortunately, was yes. He was financially prepared, whether he knew it or not, but needed to go through this process to understand that.
Do you find that it would be sometimes opening up the invitation for something to fall between the cracks if someone had to go out there and navigate all these things together, or maybe better said, they have to be the common denominator where the retiree has to go talk to a tax advisor to make sure their taxes are set every year. Then they have to go to their financial advisor and relay all that information. Then, like you mentioned with the estate plan, getting involved with that. Sometimes people don't even know what they need. And then if they get a plan set up, then they don't know what they even should do with the plan. And then, of course, the healthcare expenses. This is, again, do you think this is an opportunity for things to fall between the cracks when it relies on the retiree's shoulder to be the go-between?
Yeah, it absolutely creates a ton of work for the retiree. And I think we take for granted how a lot of those services actually come available through the current employer. And when people are retiring, you're taking over setting up your own tax withholdings. You're taking over how much are you distributing to yourself, which used to be your paycheck. You're taking over things like, we talk a lot about the estate planning. Some employers are offering legal assistance and services to help people get their wills and trusts and things like that in place through sort of an employer-sponsored group partnership with sometimes a wide variety of attorneys. But when you're in the position of having to figure all of that out on your own, things ultimately do fall through the cracks. I have seen and talked to, and I've got several clients that we work with now that retired before they came to meet with us. And through watching our TV program, Eye on Retirement, viewing and listening to our podcast and radio show here, Retire Hour, coming to our in-person workshops, they've learned more about the fact that, or some of these facts that have caused other headaches in their retirement situation. So for folks that retire and start realizing, oh, I didn't know how much I should be withholding for taxes to help cover how much I'm going to owe on Social Security benefits, for example, and they're getting hit with these expenses, sometimes increased Medicare costs, increased overall tax rates, things coming in looking more expensive than what they originally expected because they just weren't aware. Like you said in the first segment, it's hard to go online and ask any kind of web browser, what do I not know about this whole retirement picture? And going through a regimented process to discover those key 4 or 5 primary points around your income planning and your budget. What kind of lifestyle are you expecting to live? How much is it going to cost? What are the tax implications in terms of how you're going to be accessing income from these different types of accounts or investments that you might own? What are the estate planning ramifications in the event that something unexpected happens to you health-wise? Who's going to be able to help make decisions in that situation? And ultimately, how are your beneficiaries going to be treated at the end of the road? And especially the healthcare decisions. That's a big transitional piece that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially for folks that are planning on and hoping to retire prior to the age at which they're eligible for Medicare. So it's just a lot to tackle, and it feels like we're trying to cram 25 pounds into a 10-pound bag in these segments. But it's really to help reiterate for you folks, for you listeners out there, that there is a process. There is, in our case, it's typically a 3 to 4 meeting review process before we're even making any recommendations, because we've got to get a better idea of where you're at, where you want to be before we can build that roadway.
You just gave me kind of an interesting perspective. There's really kind of two types of people we help. The people that want to know the complete thing before they retire and they make sure they have everything covered, or the people that find us after they've retired without us and they've made that costly mistake. So now we're finding them because of the tax costs, because of the healthcare expense, because of the investment mistake, because of Social Security questions, whatever it is. Which person are you out there that's listening or watching this show? Are you the person that wants to retire with everything covered, all bases accounted for and everything going forward and knowing you don't have anything missing? Or are you going to be that person that retires and finds us later down the road when a costly mistake has brought it to your attention that something has been avoided or maybe even neglected in your situation? And if you're concerned about which one you are out there, the person that wants to be prepared or the person that's going to be reactive, reach out and give us a call and schedule 15 minutes with us. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. And we'll talk about if you'll benefit from going through this Core 4 report that helps uncover those blind spots before they turn into any crisis. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back with more with Larry Clefcorn talking about how this team approach works. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement, not just the investments. We're not just an investment show. In fact, we talk oftentimes very little about the investments, truth be told.
Yep.
And anyone has access to the same stock market out there. It's not like we have a special corner of the market and no one else has access to.
All in the same sandbox.
I think probably the thing that makes it all click is the fact that we are all under one roof working together with our other professionals, right?
That's right.
And you've got a story with us to share about that's kind of unique. I mean, the Postal Service, whether it's wind, rain, snow, or sleet. No, you guys continued this meeting even when we had the power go out when those bad storms were rolling through here, and you guys just met by candlelight that day.
Yeah,
so
right.
tell us what was going on in his situation.
Well, it was that day that we had storms rolling through, and as everyone's coming into work, we're without power in the building, and people kind of hung around for a little while, and we finally decided we don't have any idea how long this is going to last, and so let them come in and get their laptops or whatever and go home and work from home. So. Just about everyone did. Not everyone, but
you guys stayed behind.
Yeah. But and so this happened to be the last meeting of the day, and this was a situation where it was a client review, and they've been clients for about 4 years. He's 75 years old and still working full time because his skills are in demand.
Hey.
And however, his wife has talked him into maybe cutting back and just doing 3 days a week, starting in February and that sort of thing. When he talked to his business about that, they said, we would want to do that on contract then.
Oh, okay.
So
instead of getting a W-2, they're going to like 1099 and give them that income that way.
And so he wanted to, he started thinking about this, and he said, isn't this why some people put together LLCs? Well, he has an attorney friend at the church he goes to, and so he kind of bounced it off of him, and the attorney said, I can help you with that. He knew it would cost something, had no idea what. But then the attorney said this, make sure that you get good tax advice from a CPA.
Because attorneys normally don't give the tax advice. It's
Right.
all fragmented, like we're talking about.
Right.
So is that why he came in and asked you?
No, this was a scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a regular review. And so he came in and he was relaying this story to me, and I know a smile was probably sneaking out on my face a little bit, because I let him go on until he came to the conclusion of what the story he was telling me and informing me. And I said, you do realize you have all of that right here. And it was just dead silence. And he and his wife looked at me, and then suddenly you could see inside of him a light bulb came on. Because they've already worked with the estate planning attorneys who also do LLCs.
They help with business organizations. Yeah,
Yep.
they do that. And then I'm sure he had tax advisors coming in there too, right?
He has market tax services. So I reach out to those guys, and they're at home.
Because we send everyone home.
That's right.
No power.
Remote. And now, granted, this is 5:30 by this time. And I thought, man, if I can get them on Teams, it'll be just like they're right here in the room.
Almost.
Yeah. And so that's what we did. Now, some of you might not know what Teams means. In this case, it's like
conference.
Zoom.
Yeah, video conference.
Yeah. And so in that room, we got a CPA and an attorney on the big screen with the financial advisor in person. And all of us talked through this scenario and gave him the advice. And he didn't have to do any of the legwork himself. He didn't have to remember what to say, because all the experts, so to speak, were able to speak their language to each other and then relay that to the clients.
Much easier to problem solve when you're all in the same room together, or at least on the same video conference together,
Yeah, right.
metaphorically speaking. But, I'm sure they got all their questions answered, and they felt pretty good.
Yes, they did. And they walked out of here. You could see that they were proud. You could see that. Not only that, you could see relief, but they were very proud. And of course, I was proud.
Of course, you guys all came together and worked as a team, not only with our professionals, but they were part of the team too.
Spontaneously.
How about that? And if you guys don't have a team or a resource that you can rely on in that instance, again, which type of retiree are you? Are you the one that's going to have the team all in place so that you can see around the corners, make sure there's no blind spots? Or are you going to be the person that retires, figures it out as you go along, and sometimes cost yourself a costly mistake, whether it's with your Medicare options, tax planning, Social Security options, the list goes on and on. And if you don't have that person that you can rely on, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to that new website, retirementhelp.com. Some neat things coming there soon your way. Speaking of neat things coming your way, we'll be right back after this break with Mark Benefield talking about a Medicare story where he got this person that meeting with Mark got their advice from their friend. And that's not normally probably always the best idea. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this because it was a pretty costly mistake. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Retire Hour. Hope you guys are all again having a great holiday weekend out there. Our team is enjoying, the 3-day weekend, the holiday weekend, 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. But we've got Mark Benefield with Market Medicare Advisors with us. This is a story about a husband and wife where he continued to work, but he took some advice from a friend. You that's always the best place to go, right? And
Absolutely.
get advice from your friend.
And by the way, I have a 4-day weekend.
Oh, well, excuse
so you
me.
know.
All right.
Boss.
So I'm not seeing you Mondays. What I'm
Yeah, that's right. I met Jill and Tom. I don't know, it was a week or two ago, and this question comes up a lot at the seminars we do. Tom was, he turned 65, and his buddies down at the plant said, "Oh, you got to go sign up for Part A. You got to go sign up for Part A. You got to go sign up for Part A." And it doesn't cost anything. I mean, there's no card for most people. It doesn't cost anything anyway.
Right.
There's a few folks that it does, but for most people it doesn't. And so he goes up, signs up for Part A. The problem is that his friends haven't gotten licensed in health and life or know anything about Medicare, and so they put him unfortunately in a very bad situation.
I know sometimes why we probably go to our friends for advice on things, because we like to hang out with people that are like us. So it's probably common that whatever works for you works for me. That's not generally the case, because you have these niches, and this is a niche where, let me see if I get this straight. You're the healthcare guy, but you had to get the tax people involved.
Yeah,
Why does the healthcare guy need to go get the tax people involved?
Exactly. Well, in this case, he turned 65 and he continued to work for a couple of years until he was 68. So now he's retiring, and that's how he's in my office. So what his friends down at the plant forgot to tell him, though, or didn't know to tell him, more than likely, was you can sign up for Part A unless you are contributing to an HSA. Of course, when you put money in HSA, it's tax deferred money. Also, you can only be in a HSA and contribute if you're in a high deductible plan. Well, now that he has Part A, he's no longer completely in that high deductible plan.
Oh.
The ramifications here, though, is he's been putting money into this HSA while not eligible to do so. He's been tax deferring the maximum amount. He's doing it for 3 years. So now he's a 3-year tax burden based on the tax deferred money put in HSA that now the government wants their money back.
So it's not really the outcome you're probably looking for when you're wanting to have an HSA, as far as having it be all taxable to you and have this headache. Specifically, just because you took advice from your friend and you didn't go get a professional looking at your situation and figuring out what's going on in your situation. Because you guys would have said, well, if you want to keep contributing to that HSA plan, don't sign up for Part A.
Exactly, don't sign up for Part A. And then the question always comes up, well, what about my wife? Could she contribute? Well, yes, she can continue to contribute, but that's not a problem. She's not on Part A. Right, so it does come up a lot. So what we're able to do, obviously, when that comes up, I know enough to know, hey, we need to back out here real quick. Let's ask a question of our tax folks down the hall. Make sure what your exposure might be here, because you've got 3 years of undeferred taxes that you're going to have to, or deferred taxes that you're now going to have to deal with on your next tax return, and you want to get out in front of it, because if you don't, it's going to continue to grow on you.
And I was talking about this with Jonathan earlier. He kind of clicked with me. There's really kind of two types of people we meet with. The people that want to be the planners, get all their questions answered, get their ducks in a row, make sure there's no blind spots, and they come in and get the advice before they turn on the Medicare with us. They get the tax advice before they turn on Social Security, all the different aspects. But then there's the people that they've had a costly mistake, and it's just like in this situation. This is a costly mistake, and this is now how we're probably going to be meeting them, because this is happening, or he thought he needed to come in and get a look at what could be happening to him, and he didn't even understand this was going on in the background. That's so common, though.
And it's very, very common, especially when we talk about the Medicare side, because it's something most people don't even think about. Research or anything until maybe a year or two before they're going to retire. And most, even until they retire, it's not even a thought. I almost see it's like many, many years ago, I actually worked inside a prison, and inmates, they would escape. I've had several times they would escape, and they get caught very quickly because they have a plan, right, to get out, but they don't have any plan after they get out. What do they usually do? They go to their mom's house or the girlfriend's house, and there's a marshal sitting there waiting on them when they show up, and they bring them right back. So it's a lot the same in retirement. Everybody plans to get there, but they don't have a plan after they get there.
That's true. I can't believe you worked a prison analogy into your Medicare segment, but that you did.
We're all a part of our collective experience.
But you're right that you can have a plan up to a certain point, but really, if you haven't been there before, if you don't know, and I was just mentioning that earlier, how do you know to search for the internet on the internet what you don't know?
What don't I know today?
And that's really, again, those two types of people. I mean, I don't know why this is just now dawning on me, but there's really the people that want to get it all lined up before it happens, or shortly thereafter, right in that range. Hey, I just retired. Okay, cool. Well, there's some things we need to talk about. It's going to be different. Or you have the people that have these costly mistakes. And I don't know about you, which one would you want to be?
Well, I know which one I am. That's why I empathize so much with the people who end up with the costly mistakes. Because I come from the school of hard knocks, and I learned the hard way.
But that's not always the best way, right? And
no,
in this
it's not.
case,
I'm saying you should plan, do it. But I also empathize with the ones who don't and how they get there. And one of my specialties is trying to diagnose, figure, okay, how do we now get out of this?
And we learn about these gaps or these mistakes sometimes that are out there in people's situation by going through our Core 4 report process. Mm-hmm. That's where we take a look at the retirement, the estate plan, other risks and taxes. And I wish we would have met these people before they had these 3 years of these contributions.
I'd love to. And said, the seminars that we do are great because a lot of people, those are typical people that are planning. Most of the people there are looking ahead. They're a year out, maybe, where we meet a lot of people. I do meet people that are retiring the next day or the next week, but the ones that are further out, and we learn things. They come and they ask questions. What about an HSA? And they find out, and then we can give them that advice. Hey, if you think you're going to go on Part A, you're going to retire, make sure we stop those HSA contributions 6 months before, which is the guidance that we get to do that. So planning makes a big deal in all of these areas.
It does. And if you guys don't have someone that can help you navigate any of these issues we've been talking about this week, when these situations arise, give us a call to get on our calendar. We'll have a 15-minute chat by phone. You can do that by scheduling at 833 MAG Report. That phone number again to schedule with them for that 15-minute chat with you by phone, 833 MAG Report. Or, again, check out that new website, retirementhelp.com. Got a lot of new resources there and more to even come. Speaking of more to come, we'll be back with Gerald Eidelman with Eidelman Law Firm, talking about someone that waited all the way up to the last minute to do their estate plan. This will shock you. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement, not just the investments. And yeah, the investments are okay. I mean, that's how I make my living. I'm a financial advisor, but it's the healthcare, it's the tax planning, it's the estate planning components. And you've got this story of someone that literally waited to the last minute. What does that mean when they waited to the last minute?
Right,
I think I
right.
know what that means.
Yeah,
After they signed it, they dropped over dead?
pretty much. Yeah, 3 days later after we signed the documents.
Wow.
Elaine, our client, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was given less than a few weeks to live at the time of the diagnosis. And she had done some planning years ago. And so she had 2 children, Mark and Samantha. And Samantha was in Germany, Mark was here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they needed to go and look up the estate plan because we didn't know what she needed, because Mark is the one who called us and told us this is a situation, she's fading fast, we need to do something, we don't know what's going to happen. She had some money, she had a home, she had particularly something that was very dear to him that we later found out was art collection. And so they wanted to see how this can transition. Elaine was also concerned about what she was leaving to her kids, a mess, because Samantha having to come from Germany, having to deal with all of this.
Yeah.
And she wanted to ease the problem as much as she can. So we looked, the kids looked up her estate plan, and we got it. And what we got was a bunch of pieces of paper. She had drafted a will and other documents, but never signed them. Now you think, why would they do that? Well, it happens. Sometimes people rely on attorney services that are not local, that are online or through some program.
It's a software kit, right?
Right.
They run it through.
And they're sent the documents, but they're never explained what they got to do to follow up.
They just think they have their pretty papers and boom, that's my estate
That's
plan.
right.
And it's not, there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have to take action, execute some things.
Exactly. A will in particular requires witnessing and notarization, and it has to be written. It can't be just your last wishes,
Everything.
handwriting.
Call it a
and
holographic
sign it.
will, usually.
Holographic will, that's
Can't be
right.
one of those.
No, at least in Kansas and many other states, Missouri as well, it's not valid.
Yeah, that's just Hollywood, right?
Yeah, well, in some states it is valid.
Oh, in some states it is.
including probably California.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably Hollywood. But Elaine, she had everything in place, covered, because you said she signed it like 3 days before.
Well, what happened is that we met with her. We went to the hospital because she was already in hospice.
Okay.
And, we consulted with her. We got all the information she needed, and of course, we moved as quickly as possible to draft, in particular, the will. That was the main issue here. And we went back to her, the hospital room. We found a couple of the nurses that were witnesses. We brought our own notary. We had her sign. And 3 days later, Elaine passed away. Now, what's interesting is that her old will had her brother Tom as an executor of the will. Now, but she had stopped talking to Tom years ago, and he was not. They were not in contact anymore. They had been estranged, and she wanted to have nothing to do with him. And when she wrote the original will, even the kids were very young, so there was protections and dispositions that didn't fit anymore. And the danger here was that while the will would not have been valid, the unexecuted will would not have been valid, Tom could have used it to come in and make a mock of the estate process, because when somebody's processing your estate, or probating your estate, I should say, they can come forward and say, I am so-and-so, I want to probate their estate. And so the court has to look to see who's the best suited person to be appointed administrator of the estate. Since Tom was already in the old will, the judge could have thought, well, this seems like a good fit.
The wishes, maybe the feelings, the harmony that when she drafted the original will is not there anymore.
Oh, no.
And the judge could just look at the old will and say, well, there's a relationship there, and it just connects the dots, and that's not what you'd want.
Correct. And, for her it was very important to ease the burden of her children. We signed some transfer on death deeds for her to transfer the house he had here and the house she had in Missouri. And from there, we also disposed of her art
collection, yeah.
Yeah, she wanted it to go to a particular place to be used in an art exhibit in the name of her and her late husband.
Oh, okay.
And now you got to realize Elaine was only 68.
Wow.
She was not that old.
No.
She had no idea this was coming, and we were able to get in there in the nick of time. But we have, in the past, not gotten there.
Yeah, you and I were just talking at the break. I can remember a story that happened with you. You got the plan all done. Jenna or someone in your office was calling to confirm that they were going to be at the office to sign the plan the next day. Her daughter answered the phone, and actually the gal that was going to execute this estate plan. So then all of her stuff had to probably go through probate?
Yeah, she had died the day before that.
Wow.
I mean, and Elaine's estate will still go through probate in some parts for the art and other things.
But it has written instructions that
That's
update
right.
her wishes or her will at this time.
Right, and it made Mark the executor, so he would have the ability to deal with it here.
Yeah, 'cause
Samantha
Samantha's
wouldn't
in
have to
Germany.
worry. Exactly.
This is a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand the complexity of it until it's forced upon them.
Yes.
And that's not normally, it's not an ideal situation.
No. I mean, the idea is you want to plan, you want to think about what you want to do. Sometimes even doing a plan that you're not completely sure about, at least to have something in place.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, because you never know what's going to happen. It can happen suddenly, just like it did for Elaine, and then trying to run for try to shoot for the fences is very hard.
We've been talking about estate plans all this episode not being in the right place. I think I'm about to go see you and make sure I still have my right estate plan in place.
Yeah.
But if you're not just like me, or if you're being just like me and you're thinking, man, I don't know if I have all these areas covered, and maybe I do need to check at this again, get on their calendar. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. Or maybe you just have a question that can be handled by scheduling just a 15-minute chat with us by phone. You can do that there again by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. Or you can hop on over to that website at retirementhelp.com. Lots of new features and things coming that your way there. You got some announcements probably in the future to make with that. But we'll be right back with more, talking with Robert Carr if you own a small business, there's some other considerations you want to think about before planning your retirement. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back into Retire Hour. You know, I appreciate you guys listening and watching the show every week. We've met a lot of you guys, met quite a bit of you recently. Been an inflow, something's going on. But we really appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. And we want to be there as a resource to help you. And if you own your own business, there's more to preparing for retirement than just figuring out, oh, when do I take my Social Security? It's not, or when do I start my Medicaid? It's a bigger conversation, especially the bigger your small business is. I mean, small can be
Small's
$100 million valuation company. It could be that's a small business because it's not a major corporation.
Yeah.
But this is some serious numbers. If you've grown your asset, worked hard your whole life. Oh, I can't talk today. You want to make sure that if you are going to exit out of the business, there's probably several tax considerations someone should be looking at. Yes?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I've got a client. He just turned 50 this year. He's been reinvesting his money into the business and has grown it to over $1 million of net income every year. And he's getting taxed quite a bit, and that's a concern for him. But he's also now got 15 employees that are underneath him. And he's like, well, how do I take care of them too?
Yeah.
But he's also seeing the writing on the wall. He's estimating 10 more years before he's ready to step away. But his retirement's next to nothing. He's been putting
Everything into the business.
Yeah, everything into the business.
Yeah.
So he's coming in and we're going to work with him, try to design a game plan around, what retirement plan should we go after? What's going to be the best for the business? Do we go with a defined benefit plan, a 401k, figure out what the best retirement plan is, because there's many different aspects to each plan, what each plan can do, not just for the employees, but for the owners. And there's some benefits that the owners typically don't think about when it's retirement. With $1 million profit, he can have a profit sharing plan on top of his retirement to help get him up even higher. So we're going to run him through our strategic planning program to see if we can save not only money in taxes, but help him out with his retirement plan and see if we can come up with a good exit strategy for him.
That I think that's what a lot of small business owners really need, and they don't have it because sometimes as a small business owner, and I can attest to this, sometimes you're running around putting out the fires sometimes so often, so frequently that you don't have time to look forward. But hopefully you get it to a point where you can look forward a little bit. And what's interesting is you wouldn't even need me in this conversation. This is a tax advisor situation. Might need to get the estate planning attorney involved, might need to discuss with his healthcare options, but this is a scenario that a lot of people don't have the quote unquote retirement advisor for these assets, but you really need them.
Yeah, you do.
And they're you guys, the tax advisors.
Well, and you say we might not need you. We still potentially would need you. We're talking retirement plans here. We're talking 401ks. We're talking investments. So there's still a need for having a full team at your disposal.
Fair enough.
But
I appreciate you looping me in there.
But yeah, no, you're definitely right. There's definitely a need to have multiple partners at your side, because not only you need just an accountant to help you with your taxes or your bookkeeping, but you need someone there to help you game plan your estate plan. You need someone to help you with those investments.
Well, I'm sure you haven't noticed, but they've been really pushing this one big beautiful bill. There's going to be some tax changes.
There are going to be some tax changes.
And how does someone make sure they maximize those tax changes in their situation?
Well, they should be meeting with their financial advisor, their tax guy, on more than an annual basis. Coming in to sit down and do your tax return, that's not tax planning. That is writing a history report. So the best way to do it is meeting at least quarterly with your tax advisor.
Yeah, because things change so often. And I was teaching an estate planning class this week, and I asked the audience, I said, do you guys have a tax preparer or do you have a tax advisor?
Yeah.
Because a preparer is just preparing the return, and advisor is advising you what moves to make. And if you don't have a team that can help you prepare for disaster when it strikes, make sure you have all your bases covered and get the answers to questions that you ask in real time, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us by phone. We'd love to chat with you. 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. We'd love to have that 15-minute introductory call with you just to discuss what's going on in your situation. Because not everyone needs our services. We get that. But we meet so many people so often that didn't realize they needed our services until they've made that costly mistake. And we want to help you avoid those costly mistakes in retirement. That's why we do all the education we do, the TV show, the radio show, the in-person classes, the books that we've written, the blogs, the articles. We want to help you stay up to date on this ever-changing landscape, because when the government changes, all this stuff changes.
Correct. Yeah.
So, is my tax plan from last year out the window?
Depends. We'll need to sit down and review it again.
Well, to quote Nancy Pelosi, we've got to pass the bill to know what's in it, right?
That's right. Yep.
That sense makes more and more sense now, that phrase. That's all the time we have for Retire Hour this week. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. We'll see you next week.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell, or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.